Hello to you, I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Remeisha. It's time to track the tropics. We've made it to the final month of hurricane season, and that's typically when you think that things start to kind of simmer down and calm down. But unfortunately, that is not the case for this November because we've got a few systems that we are monitoring, and we also have a brand new tropical storm in the Caribbean. So we've got a lot to talk about. So let's get right to it. First of all, let's talk about where we've been. So far this hurricane season, we've had several named storms, but we also have two additional named storms that we've added to this list since Friday. So we had Patty to develop over the weekend, and now we have Tropical Storm Rafael that has developed in the West Central Caribbean. So that puts us all the way up to 17 named storms for the 2024 Atlantic Basin hurricane season. Typically, we'd only have about 14 named storms for the entire season, so that is definitely above the norm. So 17 named storms ranging from Alberto at the beginning of the season all the way down to Rafael, and we've had 10 hurricanes mixed in. Out of those, 4 have become major hurricanes. Those 4 major hurricanes, of course, were Beryl up to a Category 5 at one point, Helene up to a Category 4 at one point. That brought a lot of devastation to parts of the southeast and mid-Atlantic. And we also had Kirk, which was a Category 4. Milton grew to a Category 5 monstrous hurricane before barreling into the Florida area. So let's talk about what we are dealing with right now. And I want to start off in the Caribbean, the West Central Caribbean, because that is where we have our Tropical Depression 18, which as of the latest advisory has now switched to Tropical Storm Rafael. Like I said, it's the final month of hurricane season. Usually things start to kind of calm down, but that is not the case. We have another tropical storm that could potentially make its way into the eastern portions of the Gulf of Mexico later this week. So a lot to talk about. We've been watching it on our satellite get more organized over the last several hours, turning from basically a disturbance or a potential tropical cyclone to a tropical depression, now to a tropical storm. You can see that counterclockwise swirl. It is just to the south of Jamaica. You can see Kingston, Jamaica right there, and it's not that far from the Cayman Islands, and it will likely be impacting parts of Cuba as well. So the potential for several inches of rain, strong, possibly damaging wind, and maybe some flooding and mudslides going to be possible for some of these areas. I want to show you where we do have currently some of these tropical watches and warnings. You can see where I'm standing here right over Jamaica. That is outlined in the blue. That means Jamaica under a tropical storm warning at this point. Tropical storm force winds 39 miles per hour to 73 miles per hour likely as we go into this evening, tonight, and through tomorrow morning, as Rafael likely will brush by the western side of Jamaica. You can see the Cayman Islands, though, in the red. That is a hurricane warning. So, of course, that's up another level. That is more severe. We are expecting the potential for Rafael to become a hurricane by the time it reaches the Cayman Islands on Wednesday morning. And that means those wind gusts could be a lot stronger, and there will also still be the threat for flooding. Notice for parts of central and western Cuba, we've got tropical storm watches for central portions of Cuba, western portions of Cuba. We've got hurricane watches because that will be the area with the highest likelihood of major impacts from Rafael, which by the time it hits Cuba in a few days will likely be a hurricane. Also notice the Florida Keys now under a tropical storm watch, outlined in the yellow here. So we've got several tropical alerts that we are dealing with this system because it is expected to move over very warm water in the Caribbean, and it is expected to get stronger over the coming days. Now I want to switch and show you our spaghetti model plots, and they were kind of all over the place yesterday, but they're kind of starting to come together and agree a little bit more as to where this thing could be heading. So it looks like Rafael most likely will track into the eastern portions of the Gulf of Mexico, but the models were kind of undecided as to what it would do as it approached the northern Gulf Coast. But it looks like the majority of these computer models now bringing what likely will be hurricane or tropical storm Rafael likely into that central northern Gulf Coast, maybe the Louisiana Gulf Coast, parts of the Mississippi, Alabama Gulf Coast. That would be likely over the weekend. So things could still change, but right now it looks like there is a higher shot that Rafael would stay east of Houston and the southeast Texas Gulf Coast. So that would be good news for us. Of course, we've already been hit once by a hurricane this season, Beryl, back on July 8th, and some of you still are trying to recover and clean up from that. So hopefully we will be spared. Hopefully it won't hit anyone. There is a small chance it could dissipate before it reaches the northern Gulf Coast, but of course we will keep you updated and monitor things closely. All right, what's the latest with Tropical Storm Rafael? Well, as of the 4 p.m. advisory, wind speeds are right around 45 miles per hour, and it continues to push to the north fairly slowly, but it is going to brush by the western side, most likely of Jamaica, this evening, tonight into tomorrow morning. It is expected to become a Category 1 hurricane by Wednesday, and now look at this. The latest update has it actually strengthening to a Category 2 hurricane as it pushes over that western tip of Cuba as we go through the middle of the week. So that means even bigger impacts for parts of western Cuba. Wind gusts potentially over 100 miles per hour, several inches of rain. That's going to lead to flooding, mudslide potential. It then should slide into the southeastern Gulf of Mexico as we go into Thursday, and then start to approach that central northern Gulf Coast by Friday and Saturday. Notice that it does weaken, though, back to a Category 1 hurricane for Friday. By Saturday, likely down to a tropical storm. Notice the cone, though, really starts to increase, and Houston not that far away from the cone of uncertainty. We're not in it at this point, and it looks like we may be spared with a cold front that will be pushing through our area on Friday that will likely nudge it or keep it just to the east of our area, but it could still bring some big impacts to portions of the northern Gulf Coast. So we will have to monitor what happens with Rafael very closely. Our exclusive Fox Model Futurecast will show you that this system will continue likely strengthening, rolling over Jamaica by tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Heavy rain, gusty wind potential there. It then should push over the Cayman Islands and then Cuba over the next few days, likely becoming either a Category 1 or Category 2 hurricane. And here it is towards the end of the work week, 10 a.m. Friday, getting closer to the northern Gulf Coast. And that is when we are expecting another cold front to start to push into the Houston area. So this front will be rather weak. It's not going to give it a huge push, but it may be just enough to keep it out of the Houston area. So I don't think Rafael will come here, but of course we will have to continue to watch the models as they update, as new runs come in, and of course we will keep you posted on the latest. That's not the only system that we're monitoring. We're also monitoring another system, this one in the southwestern Atlantic. This one is fairly disorganized. We're basically monitoring this area near the Leeward Islands. Very disorganized showers and storms at this point for the potential for development over the next week or so. There is a broad area of low pressure that could develop, and there's a chance that we could have a potential tropical system here. However, the chance is very low, only about a 20% chance, and if it happens, it would be in that southwestern Atlantic Ocean, very close to the Bahamas, the Leeward Islands, Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, and it will likely be drifting off to the west-northwest. So that would impact potentially parts of the Bahamas, Cuba, and maybe eventually Florida if it were to hang on and become a tropical system. But right now, chances are very low, but we are keeping a close eye on it because it could also become a tropical system. Even if that doesn't happen, it's already been a super busy hurricane season. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, average number of named storms for hurricane season around 14. We're now up to 17. So that puts us right in the range of what the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration predicted at the beginning of the season, anywhere from 17 to 24 named storms. We're now up to 7 or 10 rather hurricanes for this season. That of course beats out or is above the average of 7 hurricanes, and we're up to 4 major hurricanes, and that is 1 above the average of 3 major hurricanes. So we are in the range of what NOAA predicted at the beginning of the season for named storms, hurricanes, and major hurricanes. And of course they predicted an above average season, and that's exactly what we have had so far. And we've still got about 3 weeks to go. So there could still be more action. One reason we think it could still be active, we've still got fairly warm water temperatures starting to cool off a bit in the northern Gulf of Mexico. You'll see the upper 70s, and even the eastern Gulf, 79 degrees, that water temp just to the west of the Miami area. However, there are still water temperature readings here in the low 80s, and that water is still fairly warm in the Northwest Caribbean Sea as well. So we're going to have to monitor things closely, because even though it is the final month of hurricane season, there's still at least a shot that we could have some development. Here are some of the hot spots where we would look for that higher shot for development: parts of the western and central Atlantic and the western and central Caribbean. That's where we are monitoring Rafael right now, and that could push into the southeastern and eastern Gulf of Mexico. So those are going to be the areas of concern as we try to get through this last leg or last little bit of our hurricane season. So right now, it looks like Rafael will be pushing into the Gulf of Mexico likely later this week by Wednesday or Thursday. I do think it most likely would stay to the east of Houston, although it's going to be a close call and it could still impact the Louisiana Gulf Coast, other portions of the Gulf Coast, but I do think it will stay east of here. But of course, keep checking back. We will keep you updated on the latest as we go day by day through the week. But here's the good side of this. We are still tracking tropical systems out there, but we are weeks away from saying goodbye to this hurricane season. Of course, the official last day of this 2024 hurricane season right on November 30th. So we are creeping closer to the end day by day, but as long as we still have some action out there, of course, we'll get on daily and keep you updated. Well, that will do it for your tropical update for today. Of course, we will continue to track Tropical Storm Rafael very closely and update you as it continues to strengthen. And of course, we'll keep you updated on anything else brewing out there in the tropics. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Remeisha Shade. Enjoy the rest of your day.